Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're tackling something that is notoriously slippery, heavily debated, and honestly, just completely fascinating. It's this grammatical concept that you probably use every single day without even realizing it, even while some people out there are swearing it's entirely disappearing from the English language. We're talking, of course, about the subjunctive mood.
Okay, let's just jump right in. Take a look at these two sentences here. The first one is super straightforward, right? He goes to the library. You've got your subject, your verb, they agree perfectly, normal stuff. But then look at the second one. I suggest that he go to the library. Notice anything kind of weird there? Where did the S go at the end of go? For a lot of English speakers, that second sentence sounds, a little strange, maybe a bit formal. Yet it is absolutely 100% correct. So what exactly is happening to that verb?
Well, welcome to the subjunctive. And right off the bat, I want to completely dispel this myth that the subjunctive is dead. It is very much alive, and once you know what you're actually looking for, you are going to start seeing it literally everywhere.
Now, to really get this, we have to make a crucial distinction between mood and tense. See, most of us are used to thinking about verb tenses, right? Past, present, future. Tense tells us when something happens, but mood is a totally different beast. The subjunctive mood doesn't care about time. It cares about reality, or more accurately, unreality. The subjunctive is basically our linguistic vehicle for talking about situations that aren't real, things that are contrary to fact, hypothetical, or just deeply desired, instead of stating cold hard facts.
And it's got quite the reputation. There's this brilliant, kind of hilarious quote from linguist Jeff Pullum in the Chronicle of Higher Education. He says, "Merely mentioning the subjunctive approvingly and urging that it be taught is enough to establish one's credentials as a better class of person." He actually goes on to joke that the purists who constantly argue about it probably couldn't even pass a test on it themselves. It's true, the subjunctive often acts like a bit of a status symbol for grammar snobs, but today, we're making it accessible to everybody.
Which brings us to the arenas of unreality. Where does this mysterious mood actually hide out in our daily conversations? Think of it like a map. There are three distinct arenas you need to mentally flag so you know exactly when to deploy the subjunctive. First up, we have the wish arena. This is where we express a desire for something that isn't true right now, like saying, "I wish I were taller." Second is the suggestion or demand arena. This is where we propose an action or say something has to happen. And finally, the third is the hypothetical if arena, where we imagine conditions that are super unlikely or just completely contrary to the facts. Having this mental map, that is your absolute first step to mastering the mood.
So, let's talk about the rules of the game. Now that we know where it lives, how do we actually build these sentences without messing up? The real key here is mastering what's called the mandative subjunctive. This is the form we use for all those demands and suggestions. And the golden rule? You must always use the bare, uninflected form of the verb. What does that mean? It means using the verb exactly as it appears in the dictionary, with absolutely nothing added to it. No S's, no ED, no ING, nothing. It's just be, leave, arrive. And it doesn't matter if the subject is I, you, he, she, or they. To really see why this rule is such a game changer, let's look at a direct contrast. First, the standard indicative. I insist that Andrea is here. This means I am forcefully stating my belief that Andrea is currently standing in this room. Fact. But look at the second sentence. I insist that Andrea be here. By shifting that one tiny word to the bare subjunctive form, the whole meaning completely transforms. It is no longer a statement of fact at all. It's a forceful demand about the future. I am requiring her presence. But to launch yourself into this mandative subjunctive, you need a trigger. These are words that express volition, the future, or a strict requirement. Words like suggest, recommend, insist, demand, or phrases like, it is vital that. Oh, and notice the word lest on that list. It's a great one. It usually expresses a potential adverse event, like, I am running faster lest she catch me. Whenever you drop one of these triggers, you can pretty much bet the subjunctive is right around the corner.
And this leads us to a tale of two Englishes, because here's where things get globally fascinating. You see, this usage, it's actually not uniform across the English-speaking world.
The divide between British and American speakers is literally the perfect example of this. British English speakers tend to avoid that bare subjunctive entirely. They prefer to throw in the word should, so they'd say, I suggest he should implement. Americans, on the other hand, strongly prefer the bare verb form, I suggest he implement.
To an American ear, adding should can sound kind of clunky and wordy, while to a British ear, the bare form can sometimes sound weirdly abrupt or jarring. And hey, remember those grammar scholars who keep claiming the subjunctive is dying out? Let's bust that misconception right now. Usage of the mandative subjunctive has actually surged. It is noticeably increased in both American and Australian English throughout the 20th century. So no, it's not some dusty relic of the past. It's a living, growing part of our language. Let's actually build on this and see what it looks like on a global scale. Because we've got the subjunctive around the world. English isn't just spoken in the US and the UK, right? So let's dive into some cutting-edge research that maps how this grammar rule is evolving in emerging global dialects. Check this out. This is a fascinating corpus-based master's thesis from Tampere University by a researcher named Mia Lemedy. Basically, she analyzed thousands of texts to see exactly how the mandative subjunctive and its variants are actually being used out in the wild, specifically in 4 distinct Asian Englishes. The core question was, when these emerging dialects use suggestion or demand verbs, do they follow the American bare form rules or the British should rules? The data reveals this amazing geographic split. It's almost like a linguistic family tree. The Philippines and Singapore strongly favor the bare mandative subjunctive. They align almost perfectly with American English usage, which makes total historical sense given the deep American influence in those regions. On the flip side, India heavily prefers the should variant, tightly aligning with its parent influence, which is British English. But honestly, the biggest surprise in the data comes from Hong Kong English. The research found an exceptionally high frequency of the indicative variant there. That means they're likely to say something like, "I suggest that he goes," rather than using go or should go. This heavy use of the indicative shows a really strong, what linguists call exonormativity with British English, where the indicative is sometimes used colloquially. It just proves how incredibly deep these historical linguistic roots actually run. Which brings us to why the subjunctive matters. We've explored the history, we've mapped the geography, we've covered the rules, but why should you, personally, care about mastering this today?
Well, because it gives you what I like to call the subjunctive edge. Using this mood isn't just about blindly following some old stuffy grammar rules. It's about giving yourself a really sophisticated toolkit. It is absolutely crucial for formal writing, academic essays, business proposals. It conveys this precise nuance and polite authority. Think about it. Saying, "I suggest that this measure be taken," just sounds infinitely more professional than the alternatives, right? It helps you navigate tricky legal documents, and honestly, it just makes your speech sound incredibly thoughtful and educated.
And I'm going to give you the absolute easiest way to instantly sound more polished in your everyday life right now. When you're playing in that hypothetical if arena we talked about, drop the word was and use were across all subjects. Say, if I were you, not if I was you. If it were up to me, not if it was up to me. It is a tiny, tiny tweak, but it immediately signals to everyone listening that you completely understand the formal unreality of the situation. And that brings us to the end of our explainer for today. We have officially decoded the mystery, we mapped out those arenas of unreality, and we've seen firsthand how the subjunctive is not just surviving, but thriving across the globe. So, I'll leave you with this final provocative thought, purposefully using the very mood we just spent this whole time learning about. If you were to change one thing about your English, what would it be? Thanks for hanging out.